Clearlight altitude is synonymous with the non-dual realization of later forms of Buddhism and some alternative modern forms. And this relates to Aurobindo's SuperMind. If you have found at the base of yourself a consciousness which is universal and infinite and at the base of all manifestation, it would make a little more sense how the soul could transmigrate across that and how the universe could be experiencing all of us at once. Everything in the universe experienced at once, which is the notion of a godhead. So God not as a person like me, an ego, but the universe experiencing itself through not just me, but all of us at the same time. So if my brain becomes aware of that, if this is your comprehension, Godhead is shining through me, is occurring through me to whatever extent I get out of the way. So what would that mean? The consciousness of the universe is me right now, is how I'm being, is what I'm doing. What would that do? When we talk about creation, I would propose the idea that Godhead, present for the creation, is not so much being above it, monitoring it, making choices, but the actual experience that we all had getting here. The experience that everything in the universe had the whole time being here, doing it. All the creatures in the world became us eventually, are now us, the universe, the earth, experiencing itself, reality experiencing itself as itself, hopefully. Not as this person, but literally as the world, literally as the universe, literally as the creation process itself occurring at this time. If you could imagine a community of people with this constant consciousness, constant awakeness, all three bodies fully awake and alert, what would they do? How would they behave? What would occur next? This is the concerns of the Clearlight. No longer meditation to get off the wheel, to meditate into death and to escape from karma, but the enlightened being remaining in the manifest and manifesting, creating more now on this side of it. Interesting ideas. The mystic experiences a wordless state and then is in the position where nobody understands or believes that state exists and has to convey it to people verbally, because that's how we convey everything through our first tier altitudes, which start with the verbal realization. And we're picking apart a realization that's prior to verbal, which is the subject-object duality, the creation of the ego, stuff that's even more basic. We're retconning it. If I want to know about drunkenness, I should actually listen to a sober person. The drunk is not really in a position to tell me much about anything except what it's like to be drunk, which is valuable information. That's why so many people are drinking right now. The sober person will tell us a lot more important information because the state of consciousness is, in a way, superior in that, although it is more inhibited, it is also more logically coherent, less impulsive, is not going to make as many blunders. Unless you get really good at being drunk, right? Then maybe you're better when you're drunk, like that Denzel Washington in Flight or whatever it is. And so the mystic, as we said, we're peeling back more layers, we're finding greater truths. Each of these higher or deeper layers of unfolding feels like a greater truth, like a greater sobriety. So now you're in a position where the ordinary consensus beta brainwave position is a state of inebriation from one's own emotions, from one's own intellectual reality, from true awareness of the true self. So now the alternative state is a state of greater sobriety. So this is the challenge, and that the mystic is entering transverbal realms, transrational realms that don't come down to facts about data and physical matter, but that come down to the nature of the self and the constructed reality of the mind and the psyche. Perhaps surprisingly, but perhaps not surprisingly, those assumptions have a lot to do with your emotional experience of being alive and your idea of the meaning of life, which is why each of these altitudes, each of these greater realizations as embodied in the self, are increasingly shattering of one's notions of reality in the self, because they are dismantling or deconstructing basic elements of what we believe to be true falsely, the layers of illusion. You shouldn't trust your drunk self about the question of whether you should drink. You should trust your sober self or sober people about whether you should drink, because we know that the nature of sobriety is better choice making than the nature of drunkenness, unless you disagree with that, and then you'll be on that team. Then we get into a hairier situation. What if it were revealed to you somehow, some way, that your ordinary waking consciousness is the compromised state, is the drunken state, is the less sober state, the less real, the less true, the less honest, the less good? What if you are experiencing enormous emotional pains and limitations all the time and have trained yourself to be unaware of them? And that is the nature of the constructed consciousness that you're experiencing at turquoise even, but at any level. And isn't that pretty much what psychologists tell us, that we are experiencing a great deal of limitation and pain because of the mental manifestations that we're holding on to and giving energy to? There's not a conflict here between the mystic and the psychologist in terms of whether it's more healthy to have greater insight and mental fortitude. So then what happens and what follows logically if we are then to discover a state of awareness through whatever means? We discover a state of awareness that is more true, more sober, less partial, more open and genuine than that which we're accustomed to and habitually familiar with, the consensus trance, the waking consciousness. And wouldn't it make a kind of sense that nobody wants to be there, nobody wants to talk about it, nobody wants to experience that? So they said there's various forms of death involved, deaths of the self, ego death. Nobody is here because we're afraid of the dark. We don't want nothing going on. We don't want to be dead. We don't want to not exist. We want the lights on. We want the sugar. But the claim of the mystical path is that through the darkness, through the pain, through the abyss, there's a greater clarity, a greater vision, a greater truth, a greater awareness. There is the contents of your own psyche revealed to you, which is terrifying and beautiful and everything you've always wanted, everything you've always been afraid of. That's the nature of the psyche. Beneath the psyche, if you continue, there is your true nature that's always been there before time even starts and after time ends. There is your own self, your true self, staring back at you the whole time. And so why isn't anybody going there? That must not exist. Nobody's there. Nobody's talking about it. They're at the bar. We're at the bar. We're on the internet. We're talking right now. We're busy. Why would anyone in the world want to experience that? You don't want to see a video of yourself. You don't want to hear your own voice played back. You don't want people to pay attention to you and draw attention to the things that you do. We hate to be exposed and have attention drawn to us in public, and the universe, the entire universe, the cosmos is watching you all the time. Everything you do, even when no people are watching. You are there the whole time watching. You were there, the most judgmental person of all. At the foundation of the universe, seeing everything that happens always. You're completely naked to that, completely exposed, and there's no way out of that. And so if you're wondering why is it such a secret? Why is it so hidden, esoteric? Why aren't people just doing this and talking about this? Why doesn't everybody transcend ego? Look at what we are doing. Look at what we do with our time. But here's the funny thing. Sooner or later, we're all going there. Everything you have, you will lose. It might be best to deal with that now while you are on top of things. I'm following the map because the map proves itself and there isn't another one. So here you go, here's a map. And if you're not ready to look into that abyss now, then I really can't be bothered with being told about the way forward. The way forward, upward, deeper, truer, the way is consciousness. Altitudes are levels of consciousness.